Buongiorno a tutti, grazie di essere qui dopo questa mattinata così intensa, con di tanti incontri, Michele Placido, Giulio Base. È il momento attesissimo di oggi, è certamente uno dei più attesi del festival, la possibilità di incontrare per la prima volta in una masterclass Kevin Spacey.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes.
Pictures. Pictures.
Kevin, this way, please.
Look at me. Look at me. Yes. Look at me. Yes. Yes. Look at you. Look at me. You look at you. What? Guardami. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You have also that's the problem, maybe because you have also the earphone for the translation. Can you have the because it's
I'll pretend I understand.
Okay.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Let me only salute Lucia Borgonzoni and the Major of Riccione that are in the first row with us. So we have 40 minutes. Mr. Spacey will take two questions from two students in the end. So we thank him also for his generosity. So my first question is from your early theater days to Hollywood, which moments stand out as the most transformative in shaping your career?
I think when I had the opportunity to play Jamie Tyrone Jr. in an incredible play by Eugene O'Neill called A Long Day's Journey into Night, I think this was a turning point for me because it was an experience in which I first learned about stillness. You have to understand, I was playing an alcoholic character, and I was very overactive in this performance. You could see me coming about 2 miles away, and this play over time taught me the value and the experience of allowing the audience come to me rather than me going to the audience. And of course also working with Jack Lemmon every single night in that production for more than a year was filled with so much joy and so much happiness and so much humor because he was not just a great actor, Jack Lemmon. You know who I mean, Jack Lemmon?
Yes, of course. Of course, he also did a film in Italy with Ettore Scola called Maccherone.
Yes, but Jack Lemmon was a company man, and working with him every day was just one of the great delights of my life, and to have that happen so early in my career was really a blessing.
How did your training at Juilliard School influence in picking your roles?
Well, the training I received at Juilliard, I think, really taught me discipline, emotional, physical, intellectual discipline. And I think that it helped me when I first began to reach out for those things that were challenging, that did not come easy. That's why when I first started out off-Broadway for many, many years, I did Shakespeare, I did O'Neill, I did Ibsen, I was in a sense trained to reach for the mountains and not for starlights. And I also think, I just thought of it now, that having that experience at Juilliard with my best friend from high school, Chatsworth High School, Val Kilmer, we went to Juilliard together. We would also make our New York stage debuts together in a production of Henry IV, Part 1 in Central Park, Shakespeare in the Park. To have had the opportunity to share that experience with Val and to watch him grow as an artist was very impactful for me. And I knew Val my entire life, and for those of us who knew him and loved him, it's hard to imagine the world without him.
30 years ago, today, the usual suspect imposed you. We discover you. What that character, that film, how it became part of your personal growth as an actor or also as a star?
Well, thank you for mentioning Usual Suspects. I'm very proud of that film. Thank you. I almost limped on stage tonight, but I will limp off stage, I think, after. I think Usual Suspects taught me about silence, stillness, and the power of what is not said. That sometimes the truth can be right in front of you and you still miss it. And verbal's minimalism of emotional expression, what he didn't say, really stayed with me probably with every part I've ever played since.
But what since you've been for a stage actor, then you went to do films, screen, and then of course at television, but we'll talk about that after. How was the change? What changed in you? What is the approach, the style? What was the big change for you? If there was a change, let's say.
Well, I think that the transition from working on the stage and then into cinema is that it took me a while to learn that the camera asks for a different honesty. On stage, we learn to project, but in film, we learn to reveal. And I think that when I first started working in film, I remember watching myself in film and I didn't like what I saw. The first television shows I got jobs on, it was just like, ugh. But over time, I began to learn about myself on film and what I could do. I don't believe that there's a difference between film acting and theater acting. I believe there's good acting and bad acting. But I don't believe in film and theater being different. But they are different disciplines, and I was very fortunate that as I continued to work in film, I learned about myself, and I was happy that I was a relatively quick learner.
But when you decide to do a play or to do a film or a show, what is the first step you take in order to internalize, to make the character you're going to play?
Who wants to answer that one? Someone else want to answer that one? No, I think the first thing that I look for are the contradictions. Those things that a character is at odds with themselves about, because no person in life is one note. And neither is any great character one note. It is complexities, it is contradictions. If, for example, I'm playing a famous character like Richard Nixon, who I played in a film called Elvis and Nixon. I mean, you have so much material from which to be able to look and read. I mean, even books about Nixon contradict each other because it's someone's opinion of someone who actually lived. But if I'm playing a fictional character, like, say, Frank Underwood, you've heard of Frank Underwood? He was a politician.
We're going to talk about him.
But when you have a character that's been written, you then have a responsibility to try to create a whole backstory and a history that will bring those contradictions to life. And of course, you have the added benefit of writing team and directing team and people who are helping you build that. But I think those are the things that I look for, are the contradictions.
Talking about contradiction, you're an artist, you're a storyteller, but can we say, given the world we are living in, given the news we are getting, this House of Cards was some sort of cautionary tale?
Was some sort of what?
Cautionary tale.
I'm sorry, you just spoke a different language.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that? A cola chotole. I'll have 2 with a garden salad. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Do you mean, are you talking about House of Cards?
Yes.
Well, I think we couldn't have set out to write the future, but we were probably more prophetic than we imagined in terms of how people see politics and what that series tackled.
But what suggestion President Underwood might want to offer to President Trump now? President from president.
Well, first of all, I feel as an actor, I have nothing to offer the president. But as a former president, I might say power is only about perception, Mr. President, and perception only lasts as long as people let you. Thank you. Good night. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Another very important role that basically is still more than 25 years ago is American Beauty. American Beauty was, somebody wrote here in Italy, is the first film of a new century. And you were amazing in that film.
Well, thank you very much for that. I mean, for me, American Beauty was about the gradual, slow rebellion of a man fighting against the mundane, everyday life, modern life. And I identified with those emotions then, and I still do today. It opened me up in many ways. I wish I'd been more open to other things in my life at that time, but the thing that I'm most proud of is when people stop me and say that they saw themselves in Lester Burnham, that they identified very personally with his journey, which was a journey I thought very honest, very open, filled with humor, and unexpected decisions that Lester made that I think everyone could identify with, wanting to be able to make those kind of decisions.
You are also a director. How, being a director, provide you information about the acting world? Because I mean, I think sometimes when an actor becomes a director, becomes a better actor because he understands something more of his peers, how to direct his colleagues.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think directing teaches you to be grateful for an entire company. I've directed a number of times, and I always like to say that the heads of the other departments became my co-directors, and I could not have done it without them. It teaches you about camaraderie, it teaches you about rhythm, it teaches you about shared responsibility, and you get a bigger sense of the whole picture when you direct than when you're acting in a film. Because you're there every single day, and you're dealing with all kinds of issues every single day that you have to try to bring positive solutions for. And they can be everything from losing the money to losing an actor you thought was going to do a movie. I've done a number of movies. In fact, I'll tell you one little story. I did a film called The Big Kahuna.
Yes, of course.
And I got, I had an actor who was going to play this dramatic part, who was primarily known as a comedian, and I was so excited that he was going to do this movie. And then 5 days before we started shooting, he called me and said, I can't do this film. I can't say the language in this movie. My fans won't like it. And so he dropped out of the movie. And I was like, shit, because we were 5 days before we started shooting. And I thought, Danny DeVito. I'll call Danny DeVito. So I called Danny DeVito, and he was upset because this movie I was supposed to do, they fucking broke the money went down, I'm fucking nothing to fucking do. And I said, well, Danny, it's incredible because I have a script that has been written for you. He said, really? I said, yeah, it's this amazing role, it's fantastic, it's incredible. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'll read it, sure, what the fuck? And I said, great, I'll send you the script. And he said, great, I said, when do you start shooting? And I said, Tuesday. He said, that script wasn't written for me, you fucking liar. I said, it should have been written for you, it could have been written for you. And he read it that night, and he said yes the next morning, and he got on a plane, and 5 days later we started shooting, and it's one of the most beautiful performances Danny DeVito has ever done in The Big Kahuna, if you haven't seen the movie. So that's just an example of how, crazy it can get, and it's okay to lie every now and then.
You faced a lot of challenging script. I quote just one because I met Alan Parker, The Life of David Gale. This is a masterpiece. It's a lesson in freedom and against that penalty. It's amazing, especially because of your performance. How do you decide to make such a challenging, also physically challenging script?
Well, that's a great example. Alan Parker was one of the greats, and I had an incredible experience making that movie with him. And I think that, what happens to me a lot of times is when I read something and it scares me, when I find myself feeling very emotional when I close the pages and it stays with me, then I think it's something I should say yes to. Although I do wish that maybe sometimes I could just have accepted scripts the way I hear Michael Caine picks his parts. Do you know Michael Caine?
Yes, I remember the story about the Jaws 4.
No, this is a story. I'll do my Michael Caine. Michael Caine says, the way I pick a script is I take the script they've asked me to consider, and I go sit in a library with a nice light over my left shoulder. And I open the script, and I read the first page. And I close the script, and I read the last page. And if the part they want me to play is on both pages, I do the fucking picture.
How, 30 years from The Usual Suspect, how your perception of fame changed through the years, how it evolved?
I think when I was younger, fame seemed like a door. Like a door you could, if you got through that door, it gave you opportunities to get through other doors, to rooms you were not supposed to be allowed to get into. But as time has gone by, I think I've realized that it's more like a mirror, in which it reflects not only who you are, but who people think you are. And that's very dangerous, because it's very easy then to start to perform for that image rather than doing the work that's the most important. So I'm trying now in my life to make sure I keep that mirror in this direction, because my job is to put up the mirror of life to the viewer. I can do my own personal work at home.
And are there any authors that you read or reread for inspiration, authors, playwrights, writers, novels that you read again, or you think are a source for your inspiration as a director and as an actor?
Well, I always like to return to Shakespeare, always Shakespeare. But I think the writer that I've done more of his work than any other is Eugene O'Neill. A Long Day's Journey I mentioned, but when I think back on the production I did with Eve Best, who's a wonderful actress, of Moon for the Misbegotten, which Howard Davies directed at the Old Vic and also on Broadway. When I think of the tremendous opportunity to play one of the most complex and extraordinary parts I've ever played in The Iceman Cometh on Broadway and in London as well. When I think of that company of actors who were so sublime, I'm a very fortunate man to have been able to tackle that level of theater.
What strikes us when you watch on screen, when you watch on stage, you are always look authentic. How can you be authentic in so many different characters, in so many different roles? Do you have an explanation for this truth that you provide us?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that the most important aspect for me is to not judge the characters I play, to simply play them, flaws and all. Because the moment you judge a character, you can no longer play it honestly. So I keep the judgments aside and I try to just be in the space of playing this person because everyone thinks they're right. Even villains think that they're right. So you can't, or at least for me, in my experience, I can't judge the characters. That's where it begins for me.
But have you had sometimes fear of playing a character, of being in a role, something that it's okay, I'm doing it, but it's a little bit of a challenge, even for you, I mean.
Yeah, I think fear is a compass. If I'm afraid of something, that usually means it's worth exploring, that it's of value to wrestle with and try to understand it. I absolutely think fear is hugely important. You know, when I have a script and I'm like, how am I ever going to do this? You know, how am I ever going to get to this place? One of the things I always try to remember is when I've read something, I've had the experience of by the way, I remember where I was when I read certain scripts. I know exactly where I was. I remember the moment I read it. And my job is to then give you, as an audience, the same experience I had when I first read it. So in a weird way, it's like working backwards. But I want you to have that moment of, that to me is very exciting.
You talk a lot about theatrical work on stage, but do you miss something of the process when you're on film, on series? I mean, on some technicalities that you feel that on stage? Because being the Iceman Comment, you've been on stage every night for, I guess, years in a way. So when you do a film, it's different. Do you miss something?
Yeah, you miss the audience. You miss people walking out like that. You know, they've had enough. You miss. I think we all love a shared experience. I think we need shared experiences. And when you come into a theater and you sit and you watch an actor up on stage, we're on stage sharing with you, there's this moment between my lines and your breath that is electric. And that relationship, that breath, that thing that's alive, you just don't get on a film set. I mean, the crew becomes part of an audience in a sense, but this relationship is what I miss.
I've been a friend of Giuliano Montaldo, the great Italian director, and he told me that when he did his first film in 1954, somebody told him the industry is dead. Somebody told me, don't be an actor because the industry is dead. Now
the industry is
dead. In 1950,
the industry keeps dying. I think it's every 5 minutes the industry is dying.
So what suggestion would you give to the one young actor, young actress that are here and want to work in this difficult industry?
Well, I would say, how many young filmmakers, actors do we have here today?
Just raise your hand.
How many? Zero.
Many.
Okay,
No,
good.
no, many.
Good night. Thank you so much.
There are many.
I would say, and I do say to emerging talent, don't chase fame, chase truth, and honor and protect your craft like it's gold, because it is. It's sacred, and you have to fight, because so much now is about being famous and having TikTok and all blah blah blah, right? But if you do the work, if you focus on the work, if you're driven by storytelling, and you stay in that arena, you'll be in the right place.
I mean, looking to your work, to your career, you did something for love, not for commercial reason. How is it difficult for you to be driven to a project, to say, okay, I'll cut my pay, I do...
Well, I'm not getting paid for being here, that's for sure. I'll tell you, hang on, lady. Well, I would say there have been a number of times in my life when I've made decisions that I think were driven by something other than financial gain. I suppose after and I say this very humbly, after I won 2 Oscars, I then moved to London. After I won those awards, I moved to London for 12 years, and I became the artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre, which was an opportunity for me to grow as an actor. It was a chance to support emerging talents in finding their place in the industry, to work with enormous artists, Matthew Warchus and Jeff Goldblum and Pedro Almodovar, and unbelievable talents, and also to become friends with some extraordinary, legendary artists who believed in what we were doing at the Old Vic and wanted to be supportive. Judi Dench, Peter O'Toole, Elton John. I mean, I became friends with these people, and that's one of the greatest rewards ever. But at the same time, I was also able to be a part of building a theater back to its original glory that had largely been forgotten. And by the way, theater is thriving today. More than I'm thriving. It's thriving incredibly well. So I'm very proud of that experience and all the people that helped us rebuild that theater.
What keeps you curious about human behavior? What is your personal research into human beings? Because this is the curiosity is something that we see: theater, plays, and then films, and then TV series.
I'm always curious, and B, I'm always surprised. I mean, people surprise. Even today. Because every character that you can play is, again, it's a mirror that's reflected in a slightly different way, each character you play. And humanity continues to keep me alive and interested.
And when you receive so many awards, but what is the most rewarding aspect of your work, of bringing a character that stays, that lives for years and years, that we remind? I mean, how many characters you've done that are part of our collective imaginary?
I think probably the thing that hits me the most is when is when people say that they saw themselves in something, a performance, that they, well, I guess maybe the best compliment I ever get is when someone talks to me about Lester Burnham or Mel Prophet or John Doe or Verbal Kint, and they actually talk about these characters as if they're real people. And to me, that's incredible that somehow the work I was able to do landed with them and made an impression on them to the point where they remember the name of the character and refer to the character as if it's a living person. Yes. That, for me, makes me feel like I've done my job, because they're not focused on me, they're focused on the character I was playing. That's the greatest compliment I could ever hope to get.
The other night at theater, in Galli Theatre, you end up your wonderful monologue saying about your future, you'll see. What you would like to see, what characters you want to explore, what stories you want, and of course, would you come to Italy to play not only an American film, but also maybe an Italian film, or an Italian series, an Italian show, whatever?
Yes, you'll have to pay me more than you're paying today.
Yes, yes, that's nothing, so it will be very easy. From €1 on, it will be enough. Okay, let's start. The bid starts like eBay, very, very low, but I think it will be very much higher. So.
We can't negotiate in front of these people.
Okay, I won't.
Look, I would say that maybe it will sound a little bit too on the nose, but I'm very interested in stories of redemption, of silence and survival, and the space that exists between those words. I feel that I have done quite a lot of research in that area, and that I could bring to characters an appreciation and an understanding that I might not have had 7 years ago.
Could you talk about many colleagues, many persons, but is there something outside the entertainment world that you consider as a mentor or as a collaborator that you want to name?
Yeah, I would say Phil Ramone. You may not know who Phil Ramone was, but he was a music producer.
Yes, of course. Did
Billy Joel's albums, he was an extraordinary man, and I had the opportunity to work with him when I played Bobby Darin in a film I made about Bobby Darin called Beyond the Sea. And even though he's a music producer, he is a storyteller at heart, and he taught me rhythm, he taught me emotional, he taught me an enormous amount of things about storytelling, even though his job was a music producer.
Time is running out, so before giving these students to ask you a question, your life was shaken up. How is your personal, all these judiciary troubles, all these trials you had, change you as a person, inform you, and also the actor? How was changed by what you feel in real life?
Well, I certainly would say that these experiences have allowed me to stop and to assess and to reassess and to listen, and to be very grateful for the work that I'm able to do both on screen and off screen. I'm filled with gratitude. Certainly for those in my industry who stood by me, but not just stood by me from the beginning until now, but actually those individuals who were willing to wait for an outcome in the courts before they decided how they felt about me. Those people have my trust, and I will do everything I can to maintain their trust for the rest of my life. For those who rushed to judgment and decided I was guilty and treated me accordingly, they have my forgiveness. but I'm not seeking them out to collaborate.
But, I mean, you've been talking about trust. What steps are you taking to rebuild this trust? Because it's a new start. It's a new world. It's a new. It's another part. In Italy we divide movies. We have a first time and a second time. So it's the second time of your career.
Well, I mean, I haven't stopped. You know, I've been doing a lot of work on my own, and that's been really valuable. I've continued to make movies. I mentioned Franco Nero the other night at the award ceremony because he was the first to stand up and cast me, and that started a trend. And I've been working really ever since, and incredibly excited about going back to work in a substantial way because I have so many stories that I want to tell, and I have so much to learn as an actor.
Okay, we have time for 2 students. Please raise your hand. Okay, please make a microphone there. Okay, just a second. We go. It's 2, just there. Alzi la mano per favore, così la vediamo, perché il tempo è tiranno. Abbiamo giù quasi.
Hi, Frank. My question was related to something you said earlier about your early experience with the great late Val Kilmer playing Henry IV. And I was wondering how much did your Shakespearean background influence your portrayal of Frank Underwood, a character that is famously inspired by other Shakespearean characters?
Sure. Thank you for your question. Yes, I can tell you that just before we started shooting House of Cards, and by just before I mean a month and a half before we started shooting House of Cards, I had just been on an 11-month tour playing Richard III in the theater. And we went across 3 continents to 12 different cities around the world. And what was quite remarkable about that experience for me was Shakespeare invented what we call direct address. Now that's not Hamlet going to be or not to be and talking to the whole theater. That is Richard looking directly into each member of the audience's eyes and creating them as co-conspirators. And what was so remarkable about that was you got to see people who were like, yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, this Richard guy, he's really awesome. And then he killed the kids. And then you see them start to go, oh, shit, we've been like on this guy's side. I can't tell you how valuable that lesson was for me in doing House of Cards, because when I looked down that lens and did the direct address to the audience, I was thinking about all those faces and all of those people who were loving being co-conspirators until, and I think an audience at home had that very same experience in the relationship that we were able to build between Frank Underwood and the audience. So Shakespeare had a lot to do with it, because he invented direct address, even though some people think it was Ferris Bueller.
So, to end this...
Posso fare la domanda? Posso fare una domanda? Sono qua giù, qui giù, qui giù.
Qua. Back here.
Qua, okay. Sono qua.
Sì, però tu non sei una studente, sei una giornalista.
E non posso fare
non
la
puoi,
domanda.
non puoi. Scusate, abbiamo Mr. Spesi si è riferito, she's a journalist, not a student, so.
Oh yes, no, we wanted students. Thank you very much. I'm sure you're a student of journalism. But
Yes.
Thank
Abbiamo
you very
uno studente,
any other students, young filmmaker?
don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Okay,
there we go.
signor
All right,
Godin.
now we're talking.
Okay. It will be the last question from the audience, and then
Thank you so much. I have a question for you. How do you prepare for a role so important like in Seven? How you prepare and how it was important for your career?
Thank you for the question. What a lot of people don't know is when I went, because this was 1994, when I went into audition to play John Doe, and I met David Fincher, and I auditioned, I didn't get the part. Someone else got the part. And I went back to New York, and it was like Christmas, it was like a couple of months later, and I was with my mom, and it was, I think, Christmas Eve. And the phone rang, and it was the producer of 7. And he was like, Kevin, how are you? And I was like, fine. What's... He said, you remember that movie 7 with Morgan Freeman? I said, yeah. He goes, well, it's... David fired the actor this morning. And he'd like you to be on a plane Sunday night, go into makeup on Monday, and start shooting on Tuesday. This was a Friday night. So anyway, it all worked itself out. I flew to Los Angeles. And I remember I said to David Fincher when we were in makeup and hair and deciding how I was going to look, I said to him, so what do you need me to, what are you going to need me to do? And David said, listen, I think if you just don't drool, we'll probably get away with this. And if you think about it, David is the one that did all of the creation of the aftermath of what this character had done. I didn't have anything to do with that stuff. So all I had to do was show up and not drool. And that's what I did.
To end this wonderful masterclass, what is the lesson you learn and the message that you want to share with the fans, the one who stood with you, that waited for the outcome of trial? So after triumph and trials, so many awards, so many characters, what is the lesson you learn and what is the message you want to share with this audience and also, of course, with the world?
Well, first place, I am incredibly grateful to my fans and to the people who have stopped me on the street, in hotel rooms, on trains, in so many different places over these last 7 years. People have come up to me and been so kind and so generous, and that has meant so much to me. I mean, I know there's people on the internet who apparently don't like me, but I haven't met one of them in real life. And I would say to them that what I have learned is that I don't take a second in this life for granted. I am so blessed and honored to be able to do what I do, and I am grateful to them for standing by me. The most important thing that I can do is to keep listening, keep learning, and keep telling the truth, both on stage and off.
Kevin Spacey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.